Hi, Anthony and Bob Barker here, and today we're going to be installing this split unit for our garage slash small workshop. And we're also going to talk about why you shouldn't always follow the instructions when there's something in your head telling you it might not be right. So let's get to it. Bob Barker was really excited to get this because it gets hot in the garage and he definitely likes to keep cool. So the one thing I didn't do is run this line from the main panel. I had an electrician come out and do that, so they ran it over to an empty box, which I switched out for a disconnect box later. Next, we're getting this pad ready, and so basically I dug down, leveled it out, did some sand and gravel, tamped it down, got it nice and level, and put those cement pads there to support the unit. And here we got the unit in place. I used the rubber pads that came with it underneath the feet and some Tapcons to screw it firmly into place so it won't move. The last outside preparation was putting on this fuse disconnect box. I used a liquid tight line and ran it in through the bottom right there, and then I hooked it up to the load side of this box, which is where the power goes out to the air conditioning unit itself. Then after making sure that the breaker's off at the main panel, we can connect the line side, which is the power coming in. So we came in from the bottom left and we hooked it up to the 3 spots here. And I would caution that if you're not comfortable with any of this, just don't mess with it like I didn't with the main panel. Electrician is a little bit of an extra expense, but it's worth the safety and making sure it's done right. And with that prep done, we can move inside for the wall unit install. All right, so the first thing that we need to do is figure out where we're going to actually mount our wall unit. And I kind of roughly have it in place here. So what I did first is, one, it's actually kind of nice to have this platform. Use my stud finder, just kind of looking for where the studs are. And so there is a stud running right through here. So this template kind of shows this mounting bracket. So we're going to use the holes here directly into the stud, and then we'll do some wall anchors over on the other side. So this kind of shows roughly where we're going to have the wall unit mounted. And so now we can go ahead and just kind of mark our holes, drill them, and get started. First, I want to check to make sure there's enough clearance above the unit, and then after that, we can make sure it's nice and level, or you can kind of angle it towards where your hole is going to be for the pipes coming out to help a little bit with drainage if you want. Now, this cardboard template that the unit came with kind of helps show you where all the holes are, so it makes it a little easier for that part of the install. But I went for different placements over there, so I just kind of used the main bracket itself and then kind of put it in the wall anchors. The reason why I chose this unit specifically because it comes pre-charged, so the line set is already vacuum sealed for the refrigerant lines, so you don't have to have an HVAC guy come out to charge those lines. And then I went with a 23K BTU unit because I have a decent sized garage, and I just figured I'd rather make sure that with all the air loss and everything that it still stays nice and cool in the hot summers. And the other nice thing with this unit is it is Wi-Fi connected, so you can control it with just an app on your phone. So if you're not home or you're just too lazy to come outside, you can get the air conditioning started and ready for you when you do go out there. Now we're using the hole saw to make the hole here for the line set to go out, and we followed the directions exactly of right where it should be for this. And then they have this plastic tube that goes in through there, and they want you to angle it down by about 1/4 of an inch so it drains properly. So I use this little tape with a hole in the middle to kind of help guide my drill of where exactly I want that to be. So then I just drilled straight through that, and then I made a little hole on the outside, and I used a hole saw to finish the cut. And then with that done, we have the exact measurement so we can cut this tube down to the right length for my wall width. Then we get it back up there and just get a nice little tap to keep it in place nice and snug. And separately, I bought this PVC set. That way I can close out the outside and cover the line set going down. Now, since I'm having a left-sided exit, I had to connect the line set to the unit before the install. If it was going out through the right, then it can just bend it down and connect it on the outside. So basically, you just take off the rubber caps, and then use some crescent wrenches to just tighten down both of these lines. It's clearly marked and really straightforward to connect these two. It's a good idea to do it by hand first to make sure you don't strip it, and then just make sure you get the connection nice and tight. And right about now, a little nagging voice in the back of my head was starting to question things. But unfortunately, I just ignore that, and we'll see where that pops up later. Also came with these pads that go around the connections. Kind of felt like a putty substance there, which is kind of went on and it stuck really good. Then to keep it all nice and manageable, we wrapped everything up with this tape that also came with the installation kit with this unit. We were just about ready to start putting it onto the wall, so I connected the drain line here and just kind of arranged my power cord along with it. So I got back on top of my workbench here, and then I just started to feed this beast through the line. It was really tight through this hole that it came with, and the line set was pretty rigid. But we were able to kind of get it fed through. I had the wife on the other side kind of pulling for me. So then I also just kind of fed through the power line there. And then we do the drain line along with it next. So up until this point, everything was going nice and smooth. The wife got it all nice and pulled out there for me, and it was not too unwieldy to kind of hook this in. So now we finished getting it all the way through so we can just hang this unit onto that wall bracket. And while I'm doing this, in the back of my head, I'm like remembering all the other videos that I saw with much smaller units and thinner line sets, and they just went in so easy. And for some reason, this one was just giving me a lot more hassle. So we kind of did our best to kind of bend it as much as we can and then get that thing set up onto the wall bracket. So once I got the unit up there originally, that's when I ran into problems. Now what I think happened is because this is a bit of a bigger unit, I got a little bit of oversized because I have a 2.5 car garage, and I do have insulation, but I mean there's a lot of air leaks and stuff, so I wanted it to be a little extra strong to be able to cool down this area, especially during the hot summers. And so what I noticed was the vacuum lines are much thicker and look more rigid than most of the YouTube videos that I've seen of people installing these mini splits. I see them move in those lines and they're just wiggling all over the place, but these things are really rigid. When I first noticed that, I thought it was a little bit weird, but I just kind of pushed it out of my head. And what the issue is, I wanted to mount it originally over right here. And the reason why I needed to run the line through the opposite side of the unit is because I have a gas line going right there, which would be almost exactly where I wanted to mount this unit. So I was like, okay, simple fix. The instruction says you can go on the opposite side. They have the precise location of where to drill the hole to have that exit on that side. So I went with it. However, once I got it up there, I realized that there's a pretty thick connection where the lines from the unit and from the vacuum lines connect together. So that's really thick and rigid. That does not bend. And the problem is that connection is exactly where you need to bend it to go to exit on this side like the instructions said. And so once I got it up there, I got flustered and frustrated, and I just kind of shoved it in there. And it almost worked because I got it through and I got this thing mounted, but then when I went on the outside to run it down, the thing just snapped and it looked like this. And from there, loss of footage because one, I got like so angry and upset that I just forgot to do it. And probably a good thing I didn't because there's a lot of throwing stuff and foul language is not really suitable for videos. So I ended up calling out some AC guys and they came. Now I can solder. I've done soldered copper lines before, so I could fix that, but I don't have the equipment to reestablish the vacuum within those lines. So that's why I just called them out. And since they came out, we cut the lines down to the right length, so it ends up actually looking a little nicer in the end. And since I already had that hole right through here, I just went with it, so we just shifted the whole unit completely over, which is why it's kind of like not quite centered where I originally wanted it. But, lesson learned. In my head, I was like, something is not right about the length of this line and trying to bend it out. And I just said, oh, the instructions say it should be fine, so I did it and should have listened to that voice in my head. So here is the repair. They cut the refrigerant lines and then just soldered them back together. And then after that, we can connect it to the main unit, and then they just use their equipment to reestablish the vacuum. And once that's done, you just open these two valves here, and then inside you just turn an Allen wrench all the way till it's open, and that opens the line out straight through the unit, through the refrigerant lines to the wall unit. And then you can use some soapy water to check the connections to make sure there's no leaks, and you'll see some bubbles if there is some leaks. So with that fixed, we can do the rest of the installation. I got that PVC cover, and I just screwed that straight to the wall there and then ran the line through it. And then we're going to hook up the electrical here. So we get this cover off, and it's nice and simple to connect these wires. You can see everything is clearly labeled. So first I'm going to bring in through the right side, that's going to be through the power from my disconnect box, and then through the bottom left, we're going to bring in the wire that came with the unit to control the power to the unit. And we're making sure that we use the liquid tight lines and make sure that there's nice and sealed for where these ones are entering in. And the wire connection is actually really easy. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm just taking the green from the disconnect box and from the main cord that goes to the control unit, and I'm just connecting both of those grounds. So that one is from the disconnect box, and then I'll put one right here up on top from the unit itself. And then with those in, then the next wires I'm going to do is the controller for the unit. And these are labeled 1, 2, and 3, as you can see on there, so it makes it as simple and foolproof as possible. On the left side of the unit, it also has the matching 1, 2, and 3. So you just put those into the corresponding places and screw them in, and that's it. And this unit is a 240 volt unit. The smaller units are 120 volt, I believe. This one, it has an L1 and L2 connection from the fuse box. As you can see, I'm hooking up right there. And then once those are in, you're fully wired up and ready to go. So then we can go ahead and just put the cap back on, and then I use some UV protectant tape just to cover and protect the lines there in the back. Now I do want to say, with the issue that I had, I do believe that is mainly on the bigger units. So with the littler units, it doesn't seem to be an issue at all. But I think the main fixes on this unit to have made it work would have been either just to bite the bullet and go with the placement I didn't want originally and just come out through the right side, or by the looks of it, I actually probably could have came out in the center of the unit, and it would have been much easier to bend the lines, and that connection would have been in the middle of the wall, so then I could bend it before and after that connection. But lesson learned. So finishing up the outside install here, this kit came with this kind of putty to help fill in that hole, so I just kind of basically spread it all around and sealed up that area. Then we can finish covering up the line with the PVC line cover that I had gotten separately. Now this thing just basically kind of snaps onto place, and then you have little connections that you screw in to keep it nice and secure. And before I did this, I did grab some sandpaper and I scuffed up the entire outer surface of all this just to make that PVC cover much easier to paint. Otherwise, with that kind of smooth surface, it would just peel off way too easy if you didn't do that beforehand. And after that big hiccup, I was really happy to get the rest of this done and get it painted, and there it goes, the finished product. All right, so it's in. So as long as you are careful and patient, it's a great project and it makes a world of difference in your workshop. And more importantly, Bob Barker loves it. When I have the AC going, he will just sit right in front of it and relax all day long with me. So that's it for today. We'll see you guys in the next one.